Hello again. I wonder if anybody remembers now how the last Labour government in Britain was so determined to introduce compulsory identity cards. There was great opposition to the scheme, and the Conservatives who were in opposition at that time promised to scrap the whole thing if they came to power. When Labour lost the 2010 election, we all thought that identity cards were going to be consigned to the scrap heap of history. That a decade or so later it should be a Conservative government which revives the idea shouldn't really come as a surprise. All politicians, of whatever supposed creed, have certain things in common. One of these is a desire to know what people are doing and, if possible, to be able to regulate and control their lives. This, of course, makes for more orderly government. One of the great joys of my life is to wander around a big city like London and know that I'm completely anonymous. Nobody knows where I am, nobody could possibly find me. I carry no mobile telephone. I just roam about, popping into museums and shops when I feel like it, quite at random. That carefree way of life came to an abrupt end a few months ago. One can no longer just walk into a museum simply because you happen to be passing. Instead, you must book in advance by using a computer, which automatically tells the museum who you are and where you are. Now, if I wish to go to a museum, I must hand over personal details and make sure that I turn up at a particular time. This both takes the pleasure of spontaneity from the thing and also robs me of my anonymity. It means that the museum and ultimately the government knows where I am at a certain time. Perhaps this seems a trivial matter to some viewers. Not everyone is as keen on museums as I am. But from the autumn, anybody visiting a nightclub or some other place, we don't yet know the full details, will need to provide medical evidence that they have received 2 doses of a vaccine. This will be a legal requirement. Still, that only affects youngsters at nightclubs. Nothing for the rest of us to worry about, is there? There's some old guy that likes to wander into museums when he likes, and a lot of drunken young people that like going to nightclubs. None of this really affects ordinary folk, does it? Except, of course, that once it is accepted that a law of this sort will work, it will be extended. I strongly suspect that pubs, zoos, theme parks, museums, theatres, cinemas, and even churches will end up being included in the thing. Once the principle has been established that you must share your medical details in this way and identify yourself, then it is inevitable that more and more places will ask for such information. The thumbnail to this video shows a COVID pass. Am I the only one that finds this a deeply sinister expression? A pass to visit a nightclub, a pass to go about your daily life. Some are issued in paper form and others to be downloaded on a mobile telephone. At once we see a problem. What is to stop that paper COVID pass being lent to somebody who has not had the vaccination? You could lend to somebody your mobile too. Yes, to make sure there's no fraud, additional identification will also have to be shown to gain entry. Something with your name on and preferably a photograph, so that people can be certain that the COVID pass really is yours. Is anybody seeing the nature of the problem yet? Already one cannot visit a museum without identifying oneself. Now you'll be obliged to show 2 forms of identification to attend a concert or visit a nightclub. All this is a bit of a fuss though, isn't it, carrying 2 different things about? Wouldn't you find it easier to carry a little piece of plastic which both established your identity and also allowed people to see your medical status at a glance? If you've got nothing to hide, you've nothing to worry about, surely. That's certainly what the company handling the cloud software for the COVID passes think. The company is called Entrust, which should immediately raise the suspicions of any right-thinking person. It has for decades been a basic rule of mine that when anybody says, trust me, then that's the last thing I'll do. The product marketing director for Entrust is called Jen Markey, and she says that vaccine credentials can become part of the infrastructure for the new normal. Well, of course, she would think that way. Her company has produced identity cards for Malaysia and Albania, among other countries. So she probably senses a business opportunity here. She goes on to say, with the infrastructure and investment necessary to ensure a viable vaccine passport, why not redeploy this effort into a national citizen ID programme that can be used for multiple purposes, including the secure delivery of government services, secure cross-border travel, and documentation of vaccination. And we are finally there. All governments like emergencies and crises. When things are quiet and they come up with an idea like identity cards, people have the leisure to examine the proposals and debate them, start all sorts of silly arguments. When there's a national state of emergency like a war or a pandemic, lots of people are scared, or perhaps they don't want to appear unpatriotic. If the government says that we need strict licensing laws and to close public houses in the afternoon to win the war, as happened during the First World War, or identity cards, as happened in World War II, most people will put up with the temporary inconvenience and loss of freedom. Except, of course, that we all know that nothing lasts like the temporary. Unless people wake up soon and start to cut up rough, we're going to drift into a situation where we're routinely expected to produce a pass just to go about our daily life. Identity cards are closer now than they have been in this country since last they were used during the Second World War. If we don't take a stand soon, it'll be too late.